Hey everybody, I'm Christiaan from Ludosonics, and this is...
I'm Tyler Sampson from Ludosonics as well, surprisingly enough.
For our gaming fanfare this week, we will be talking about Darren Korb, who is the composer for Supergiant games, and who has composed... So he's composed for the games Bastion, Transistor, and most recently Pyre.
Yes. Today we're going to talk about Transistor and Bastion. We're going to not talk about Pyre. There's no reason other than the fact that we haven't played it. So we don't really have experience with that game. So we're going to talk about Transistor and Bastion because they're really cool and we played them. So yeah.
So I think over this video you'll notice I know more about Bastion and he knows more about Transistor.
A little bit.
But it's nice because these games are really almost kind of like successors to one another. Maybe not story-wise.
Well,
or
they
even
can join together in such a way that they have parts that fit together. They're almost the same, but the rest of it is so different that they really do seem like two sides of the same coin. Like, where you got one that's kind of like an old school feeling steampunk or fantasy. Yeah, steampunk fantasy hack and slash versus a what did you say? Cyberpunk futuristic sci-fi turn-based hack and slash. Transistor is kind of weird game to kind of describe.
To boil down.
But they have a lot of similarities both in their music and their storytelling structure. Yeah. That and their gameplay even that make it really stand out as a Supergiant game. Yeah. And really excited to talk about these games because they're really fucking cool.
So in Bastion, they established with this thing of constant narration in the video game where every little action that you do, basically you're almost like testing the game developer, Supergiant, to say like, if I do this, will Rux say something to me? So Rux is the narrator in Bastion where he's talking about the boy. So basically the boy that's trying to save the world from all this from literally falling apart.
With this silky smooth, just sexy voice he has. Yeah. Like, my God.
Yeah, so that's actually, if I recall, and we can actually double check this, I'm pretty sure the guy whose voice you hear, that's Rux, is actually the sound designer as well for Supergiant games, because I was scrolling through the whole, their let's take a look real quick. Narrator, or maybe he's just the narrator. I thought he was also the
Logan Cunningham.
Yes, Logan Cunningham. Just a fantastic.
Wait, no, I don't want a video. Son of a bitch.
Script. I'm assuming some of it may have even been improvised. Yeah. But what I find so fascinating about the dialogue in this game is that I really am always trying to basically think to myself, is there a way that I can jump off the map, for instance? He had something to say about that. I don't know if it's the same in Transistor, but I know there's very few games where you're just like testing to see if the game developer really did think of every possibility. Because another game like
Transistors is more diegetic than this one. This one's more of a narration to the player. Whereas Transistor is the sword talking to Red, the main character.
Talking to her, yes.
Yeah, talking to her, talking to you through talking to her. So he gives like exposition dumps sometimes, but it's more like, wow, can you believe this happened? Like when talking to her. Because as far as I know, I believe what happened is that the voice you hear in the sword is her lover, or love interest of some sort, who was killed, I think, at the beginning of the game. She takes the sword out of a body and keeps it, which I think it was his body, and his soul got transferred to the blade. Something like that.
You ever hear of this game Lollipop Chainsaw?
Oh, yeah, I love that. Yeah, the head, the severed head on it. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So basically with Bastion, it's more like what you are playing is actually Rux telling the story to kids in the future. So he's referring to the past tense. Oh, the kid did this, he did that. So he watched the kid doing all of this, whereas in this, it's more like happening at the present time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, and I just love that. The other game that I can think of that has this similar try to think and beat the game developers is a game called Stanley Parable.
Oh yeah.
You know this?
Yeah. So, I didn't play it. I played the demo that was released when it was first released, but yeah, it's very much one of those. The entire purpose of the game is to try to break it and marvel at the fact that the developers thought of that already.
So I've basically just, everything about Bastion drew me to it, literally except for the gameplay, because I personally hate hack and slash games.
No, I feel you. That's the reason I haven't touched God of War yet.
Whenever
I watch the gameplay for God of War, the new God of War, I'm always like, it just looks so.
I know.
And I want to play it because I've heard nothing but amazing things about it, but I just can't get the drive.
But with all of these Supergiant games, the first thing that happened was I actually heard the soundtrack first, because I was actually going through Spotify and just looking at all the video game soundtracks that they have on there, which, if you're curious, all of the Sonic the Hedgehog soundtracks, like before the 2000s, are on there, including Sonic Racing, which those are jams. Really, really dumb songs.
You and your fucking Sonic music, man.
To me, it's like Persona for you, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's got that J-pop aspect to it that I love.
That's for sure.
And it's really
especially in
cheesy and
the
dumb.
later games. They actually incorporate J-rock into it and stuff, so yeah.
So I discovered Bastion. I was like, well, shit, if the music's this fucking good, the gameplay must also be that good. And it was. And I don't like hack and slash games, but I enjoyed that. See, like, all the time people try to get me to play like Diablo or games like that. I'm just like, no, get me out of those dungeons. But just watching the art style and the worlds piece together while I'm walking on it just made me
very strange.
It's strange, but it makes me feel like I am building this world around me, and I love that. It makes me feel like even every action, including every step I take, means something.
Yeah.
That's just so powerful to me.
Yeah, the combat in Bastion it isn't special, when you're playing it. It's kind of traditional, but it works with the camera, with the art style and everything. It just feels good. It's the same feeling that I'm getting when I'm playing Hyper Light Drifter. The combat isn't anything crazy. It isn't special, but the art style and the graphics and the music, everything culminate into making it a really interesting and fun game. A lot of that has to do with sound design, making it feel punchy, making it feel crunchy when you're hitting something. Tactility. It's not really a word, but the tactile feel of if it feels sticky, and it feels sticky in a good way.
It's like me still trying to play through the Insane trilogy, Crash Bandicoot, and sometimes I'll jump in a box and I'll just slide off.
Yeah. And you want to rip your hair out.
In Bastion, everything felt like if I fucked up, that was my fault.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of these things where I'm like, oh, I absolutely shot that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hack and slash combat's a really, really weird, sticky subject for me, because then there are games like any of the Musou games, like Dynasty Warriors and all of those warrior games where I just really can't stand. There's power fantasies like that mean nothing to me in video games. I get absolutely no joy from just hitting a button and killing 10 people at once. It's like there's no fun there. But sometimes you'll find a game that does it and it does it really well, and I can't quite pinpoint what it is,
why they do it right.
Yeah, or how they do it right, or how other games mess it up.
A lot of it has to do with the camera.
Yeah.
If the camera, like in Kingdom Hearts, for instance, that's another sort of hack and slash thing, even though Kingdom Hearts 2 got a little more in-depth, right? Really? It is, in a sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of a mix, because I mean, it really is a hack and slash. The only difference is that you still have the item command box at the left, but it still ends up being the same thing, because you hit X on the attack button rather than hitting circle or square.
But that camera is god awful.
Yeah.
At times.
It is.
But in Bastion, you have this nice bird's eye view, or sort of bird's eye view, and it's just love it.
It's just so strange, because another example of a game that I really, for all intents and purposes, should like, based on the games that I do like, Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2. I tried playing it, and when I'm fighting, I'm just bored to tears.
Right.
And I know I shouldn't be. I mean, like, the beautiful graphics going on, the crazy insanity of what's happening on the screen, it just feels marred to me by the fact that I'm just tapping square. And I know it's got combos, but You know, I think it was Colin Moriarty or something, who says, if the game doesn't force you to use 70% of your combat techniques, then they shouldn't really be there in the first place.
Right.
And if you can get through the whole game pressing square repeatedly, then you kind of fucked up, as a developer. So, and on the other hand, it's strange because I'll go to a game like Final Fantasy 15 and just fucking love it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even simpler in many people's eyes because you just hold circle.
Yeah, I think the new thing for hack and slash is just make it pretty.
Yeah.
Make you feel like a badass. So like when I'm playing through Final Fantasy 15, it's like I'm just gonna jump on this giraffe and just go to town.
Yeah,
or whatever the fuck they were. You know what I'm talking
I don't
about.
get it because at the same time, I was just saying that if it doesn't force you to use these combat techniques, then they messed up. But when I was playing Final Fantasy 15, I found myself actively trying to find the subtleties in the combat system. And the same with Final Fantasy 13. Final Fantasy 13, you could pretty much hit auto and you'll win, but it won't be fast or easy. And but I went out of my way to try to find the best, what do they call those, paradigms?
Yeah.
Best paradigm shifts and stuff, and try to figure out how best to finish these battles in a timely and epic way. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just freaking biased towards JRPGs.
It's possible. It's possible. I know I am.
Yeah. But back to we were talking about Bastion and Transistor. Transistor's combat is quite a bit different. It's kind of got the same camera angle to it, top down, but it is a bit more in line with Bastion. That's a hack and slash, but it's got this pseudo VAT system built into it, where you can pause the game at any moment.
Like VATS from Fallout.
From Fallout, where you can pause the game for a moment, and then while everybody's stuck in time, you get to run around, stop, set up an attack, and keep doing that as long as you have a meter that's constantly clocking down. Kind of like what happens in Valkyria Chronicles. So anytime you make a movement, anytime you run, anytime you set an attack, it takes a chunk of that bar away until it's empty, similar to VATS. And then you execute that plan. And so it's this half action, hack and slash, half turn-based combat that is pretty unique to the game. And it's got a lot of puzzle solving moments within the combat as well, with trying to find weak points on the enemies, or maybe you need to do something to the environment itself to kind of create an opening or something. The combat in that game is just really different and really cool.
Let's get to the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you
All
want
right.
to start with Transistor, Bastion? Then we talked about Bastion first.
Yeah, let's start with Bastion.
Let's do it chronologically.
Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is Proper Story.
Oh my gosh.
You know the music better than I do in this game,
Oh
so I'm
my
going to
gosh.
leave it up to you.
This is one of the few tracks that I actually put on my normal playlist. Like going along with all the new disco I listen to. So the interesting thing about Darren Korb's music is that to sort of establish this punk feel in both of the games, he uses in Bastion different instruments than he uses in Transistor, except for the percussion.
Yeah,
The
it's
percussion's very
got this
similar.
like almost trip hop feel.
Yeah, so in both games, the percussion's very industrial sounding. Like, imagine if Trent Reznor were to score the games. That's
Yeah.
probably what he would do.
Yeah.
So,
And it's got like electronic synth hip hop feel to it.
yeah, in Transistor, it's very electronic.
Yeah.
But
But even this kind of not electronic, but it's got that almost synthesized hip hop beat to it.
yeah, it is a very synthesized hip-hop beat. But the difference between the two that we're going to sort of take a look at today is how Bastion uses, obviously, more of this acoustic guitar. To
Giving
create,
it more of a blues feel.
Yeah, to create this, like,
Blues and bluegrass.
To match the voice of Rux.
And
then-
as well as the overall aesthetic of Bastion, because the aesthetic of these games are very different.
Yeah.
Bastion is green, it's colorful, it's got a lot of greenery, environments and stuff popping up, a beautiful world.
A dystopia, yet beautiful.
Yeah, and whereas Transistor, on the other hand, is almost Blade Runner in its look.
Yeah.
It's very drab, it's a lot of blues and neons and reds, and it's totally artificial. and man-made, whereas Bastion is kind of more naturalistic in its design.
Yeah.
And the music kind of reflects that too for those. So we're gonna take a look at a proper story first. So here we go.
So he's using a steel string guitar, but one of the most exciting aspects of this soundtrack for me as a guitarist is how he used different guitar tunings. So this is not a normal guitar tuning where he does the that hammer-on pull-off really fast. That he sets his guitar up so that it's very pentatonic friendly, which you'd think the guitar literally already is pentatonic friendly.
Right.
But he goes like intense with it, so where when he's playing some of these chords, when he plays like a normal G chord, it ends up just sounding like G, like a huge ass G power chord.
Oh, okay.
And you notice like when he's playing these chords, they're not really like major or minor. You notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more emphasizing. It's a very different way of imagining playing the guitar.
Yeah. So it's basically missing the third
Yeah, exactly.
power chords by definition. Yeah.
But you know, it still sounds like very acoustic because of the sounds. And that's it. Like that's it. It's a really short track. And he's got these like laser percussive shoots, and they're like pew,
Yeah.
pew, and it's so fascinating to me how we how he matched the aesthetic of this game so perfectly. Because like some of the villains in this game, it looks like maybe they're shooting lasers or just like magical beams of sorts.
Yeah.
And so those things, he's sort of putting, you know, some sound design in with his music, which I really appreciate. And so that's a perfect example of how he's messing with the guitar tuning, and to really emphasize like this, like a folk guitar sound. So let's, what's the next one?
The next one we got is Slinger's Song, which I wanted to kind of bring up because it's just got that awesome intro. So here we go with that. This is it, right?
This was the slide guitar, right?
Yeah. I've always loved that slide. What do you call that? Like is this a metal slide? Yeah, the tool that you use, the guitar or the glass slide
like,
or whatever.
You can really use a lot of different metal objects on metal strings.
Even you use a beer bottle. I've seen that many times.
No, exactly. Yeah, it kind of creates a weird twang with everything.
Yeah, that's my favorite type of like blues sounding guitar stuff. You also hear this stuff in like one of my favorite soundtracks of all time is the soundtrack to the show Trigun, and uses that all throughout it, and that's where I fell in love with that sound. So yeah,
every little track in this piece, and really in everything he does, it's really just a rock and roll riff.
Yeah.
Just with some nice little twang on it. And this has some electric guitar in here as well.
Yeah.
And and he's just doing pentatonic scales left and right. This is like.
Now you mention it, I hear a little bit of Transistor in that electric guitar.
Yeah.
But it's like it'd be Transistor if you stripped away that blues guitar and the heavy, like that right there, that beat. If you brought that down a little bit, brought it back, got rid of the blues sound into it, and made it a little bit more echoey.
Yeah.
More reverb on it, and you got a fucking Transistor sound.
What else? Another thing I really love about and doing this whole podcast weekly has actually really changed my. Most of it has actually really changed my own composition for the better. And I noticed, like, I'm listening to some of my favorite tracks again, and I'm thinking to myself, why the fuck don't I use compound time more? And I am now, because, you know, this has a shuffle to it. Or it's just in compound time, I don't want to say. And it's in compound time, and for the longest time there, I was into all this like groove metal, which typically is not usually in compound time. But now this shows me back to how this can still sound groovy, and how do you get those grooves going? And so that sound is all about, you know, this song is all about the sound of that slide guitar.
Yeah.
And it's just this pad, and he keeps that going the whole time, and just adds these little percussive elements here and there. But what's the next one? Yeah, the next one we're going to talk about is really nice because this piece has an element of it as well. You'll notice some of these slides, he does not go all the way to the note that you'd want him to.
Yeah.
because the percussion in here, I can guarantee you, that's really just like samples that he threw in. And so that can be okay, but then it sounds almost too robotic at a time, right? So we click a button and it starts playing the drum riff in whatever way it wants to do it, and it lands exactly on the beat the way he wants it to, which no human does that. So the nice thing about this, and there's some other things in the next song, actual song that we're going to listen to, is how he's using these imperfections to still have a sense of humanity in this sound.
Right.
Because the samples can really quickly make it sound very produced.
Oh, I know it. Yeah, that's my big problem when I'm trying to compose and trying to actually produce the song outside of the composition. Every time that I try to export a song and mix it and master it, always sounds off. And a lot of it has to do with the sound quality of the samples that I'm using, but most of it has to do with the fact that it just sounds too robotic.
Yeah, and with this guitar riff, what he's kind of doing to avoid that is he's not even really always listening to that drum track, and he's like, I don't know, and he takes his time and doesn't land that slide right where it needs to happen.
Right.
Or needs to happen. And I love that. And it creates this momentary dissonance that just sounds phenomenal. But so we're actually going to listen to the song with lyrics now. So this is Build That Wall, which is
said our president quite a few times. So in memory of Donald Trump, here we go.
I'm going to build that wall and make the boy pay for it.
Oh no, this is not it. That's Terminal March. What the hell? There we go.
So I love the unison guitar playing with the voice hum here. Oh, it's so powerful, and that almost actually is like a foreshadowing to some of the stuff he's going to do in Transistor with the humming.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But
I dig my hole, you build a wall.
again with what I was talking about before, his guitar playing here, you can tell he's a phenomenal guitar player. You know, I've watched him and he's got...
Yeah, you have a degree in this, so you know.
He's got some weird habits, but that tends to not bother me because people who are like obsessive about technique forget that so many
of the best guitar players in the world aren't professional.
neglect these things and have created new techniques because they play wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's the thing about music. You can learn about it, but really ultimately it's whether or not you can produce something.
But you can hear the emotion of this. Like a guy who has, for me for instance, I don't know if I might be able to play the guitar in that with that sort of feeling, but I can hear this like organic emotion in the song where he's hardly hitting the strings in the right way. There's a lot of buzzes that are happening, which so many, like I literally had someone the other day come into the studio here and say, and was like had me listen non-stop to his guitar track and was like, is there a buzz in here? I'm like, yeah, but who cares? Gives a fuck. Now you can say, people, there's no question that I actually played this.
I've never understood the freaking out about the buzzing, because when I listen to a song and I hear a guitar buzz or I hear somebody singing and they kind of have like a in their voice, you know, or they're just singing something and go like, I found it, you know, I'm like, I've heard that in like a Khalid song, right? And I'm like, I love that because it's a flaw, it's an imperfection that they kept that makes it human. You know, it's the reason why people go to live shows. People go to live shows, one, to hear the songs they love, but they want to hear it by the human. They want to hear the live version. They want to hear you fuck up the lyrics. First show I went to go see Stain, and they fucked up the lyrics to Outside, one of their biggest songs. And he brought attention to it during the show. And everybody was like, yeah, and started cheering for him and clapping and stuff because, hey, you're a human like me, you know? And that's what they always want to hear when they listen to music. You know, it used to be about perfection, about creating this perfect piece of music, but now it's about authenticity. More so as we get further and further away from authenticity and pop, people just crave it. That's why in genres like country, you get all this crappy country pop, and then you get these just rising stars like Chris Stapleton,
who embraces the imperfections in his pieces and just lets it go. And people look at, like me, I hate country. Chris Stapleton, fucking awesome, because he is a blues man. He just does what he wants to, and he's unafraid to not be the most perfect.
Right.
And he sings what he means, and he's authentic, which most country today is completely inauthentic, which is why I can't stand it. Because every time I hear, I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't believe the singer. But I think myself and a lot of people, especially today, they crave what they've been lacking in music for a long time, and that's any sort of authenticity.
And you know what? You could even say that even the classical tradition for the longest time lacked authenticity.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had orchestras in the 19th and 18th centuries trying to perfectly mimic what was on the score, because we didn't have recorded music. That was their job. They were basically being the recording. So you would go to this live concert, and if someone missed a note, it would be like there was a scratch in the CD or something. And
well, that's why in
now,
the 20th century, that's why you see composers trying to get away from that by putting little spots in there where it basically says improvise.
Yeah.
Or you have entire pieces where they're like, hey, so I want you to start here, and then just kind of find your way to this point, and then maybe come around back to here, and hey, I composed a piece for you to play, and everything else in between that is up to you, because 20th century composers, as pretentious as they could be, and there were a lot of them.
Current company excluded.
Yeah.
Current company excluded.
Like late 20th century, that's when they kind of got to the postmodern era and started focusing more on combining every single genre together and creating something that sounds good. You know, they kind of backpedaled on the extreme of the 20th century music.
Right.
But they wanted to make it as authentic of a performance so that each performance was unique. Of course, the counter to that is, did you actually even compose anything? If you're sitting there just telling them to improvise, it's not really a composition.
If you gave a form, and a unique form, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but it leaves a lot
it's
up
art.
to the question.
Art's
and this is
art's weird.
This is actually a big question, because I hate to be that guy, but the Pulitzer Prize winner of this year was Kendrick Lamar.
I did not know that.
You did not know that?
I didn't know that. That's pretty dope, though.
A tradition that's been only three jazz composers. So the Pulitzer Prize is usually for academic composers, typically those from New York City, and I'm fucking salty about that place, but that's just me.
What, New York?
I just don't like, and I'm like from that area, and I was surrounded by. I'm just gonna stop this right here. I'm not a fan of that city. I love LA, but
I'm the opposite. I guess it's because I live over here.
Yep, back and forth. So.
Well, then I work there every day, so I have to drive in LA traffic. So I get really salty really quick about that place.
So I just I kind of grew up and learned in that sort of East Coast tradition of the Pulitzer Prize, and now they were specifically trying to be different, which is the only reason it's bad that he won, was because they did it to make a fucking statement.
Yeah.
So he won for his album Damn, and
which is unfortunate because it's probably one of his weaker albums, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's some weak moments in it, but
it's not even that it's weak. It's just that To Pimp a Butterfly is just spectacular in every regard.
It is. It just didn't come out that year.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's that thing. And what I love about this, or him winning the Pulitzer Prize in this, is how I think even that is now starting to remember, like, what the fuck is music supposed to be? It's about pure emotion.
Right.
And I know some people disagree with that. People love absolute music, where it's music for the sake of music, but typically music for the sake of music has no emotion attached to it. We just attach it because we've had like certain things go on in our lives. Like when I listen to Freebird, I heard that when my uncle died, so it's a tough one for me.
Yeah.
And those sorts of things. And that's what I love about this. And I think we're going to see with this, the composers that are more like our age, in this academic tradition, are going to be like, oh, thank fucking God. Okay, time to start writing my hip-hop beats with the art songs now. Let's do it. Let's go. And I think we're going to see an interesting...
Well, this is going to lead to another, boost in that postmodern direction. because you're going to start seeing people just throwing caution to the wind and mixing genres that you would never expect to. You know, let's put orchestra and, you know, or like fucking what's that really bassy, crappy hip hop, like
Dubstep?
no, well, okay, yeah. Let's use that as an example. Orchestra and dubstep or something. You know, you'll mix things that are like super almost cliche and tried and true, like classical music, and mix it with something that you might see with like Lil Yachty. And I just pulled that name. I've never actually listened to anything he produced. Yes. But you might see stuff like that with this kind of thing. And I'm all for that. I'm all for people just saying, you know what, why don't we do something that seems on paper absolutely asinine and make it sound good. And that's kind of what I'm happy with, like these, you know, performances with Bastion and Transistor, because Bastion, you're looking at blues and hip hop, kind of.
Yeah.
Blues and at least house music.
Sure.
Yeah. And with Transistor, you get that, but it's like jazz. It's like, they're just so weird, but they're done so well that you can't help but listen to them and be amazed to a certain degree by just how good it sounds, plus with how well it flows in the game itself.
I would love to see, like, all the music we've heard by Darren Korb thus far is all been for a video game. And I would love to see, because he obviously has a voice, and he's doing a lot of this to specifically mesh with a video game and a particular setting. I'd love to hear what the solo album of his would be like.
It'd be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
So the next one we're going to talk about is Bottom Feeders.
Bottom Feeders.
Or The Bottom Feeders. It starts out with this really compressed, what is that, like reverb piano? Like,
I think that's a guitar.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell.
It's a guitar, super like shiny, shimmery guitar that has almost like U2 vibes to it.
This almost reminds me of like the opening song for Zone of the Enders.
Yeah?
Yeah. If you probably haven't played that game. Not many people have, but that game's got some great fucking music in it. And the opening part of this kind of reminded me of that a little bit. But yeah, so what do you think about this?
It's so funny because this piece combines both of the chillest moments and the most intense moments of the soundtracks, I think. Because he starts with that shimmery guitar, which is almost kind of peaceful and everything. And then he has this raucous, like the most raucous moment of the soundtrack, in my opinion, where he's got like all kinds of syncopation happening and barely any beat.
That really crazy synth right there in the back.
But every now and then this thing comes in that goes, and it's like a saxophone. That's a saxophone sound. I don't get that, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Makes me chuckle.
It's a weird outlier in the soundtrack we've heard thus far.
I'm okay with, and see, like this could fit easily in Transistor with a couple little changes here and there.
It's a little too uppity, I think, for it.
You think so?
But yeah, I think it could with some alterations.
So for comparison, we're bringing up.
Nah, I was just gonna.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was just gonna show you that later.
Fuck that.
I pulled up the Zone of the Enders song, but I'm just gonna show them afterwards.
Oh, that's nice.
That was cool.
Well, here's another thing that I don't think I mentioned, but I mentioned right before we started recording. These soundtracks remind me so much, I think, of my childhood, because there's elements of this that are just like Spyro, which was our,
That really does sound Spyro right there.
It does, right?
Yeah.
And something about that, because Stuart Copeland had this very industrial sounds to his pieces as well, and it almost had kind of like this jazz proggy sound that I think I've just always loved. Like I remember when my dad would put music on, like for no reason, so many people are always drawn to like Billy Joel or whatever, and then he would I would always be bored out of my fucking mind listening to my dad's music. Then he put King Crimson on. I was like, what is this? You've changed my life.
King Crimson?
Okay, just type that into it. Well, that'll be for later. So King Crimson is a very, very interesting progressive rock band. Very interesting. It's so interesting the fact that Kanye West decided to sample them.
Okay. Yeah, is this like a 70s prog group?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, that's probably why. I'm not familiar with a lot of the older prog groups, with the exception of the big ones like Yes and Rush and stuff like that.
Right. Let's see. Yeah, and so I've always been attracted to this very complex sound.
Wait. I know that artwork.
Yeah, it's a famous. That's the one that he sampled.
Didn't Anthrax use that artwork though?
I'm not sure. I love these little chant-ins we go on.
I know.
It's like it's almost like that game.
It's also not helping that nobody can really see it. Oh, I was thinking of the Fistful of Metal album art. Anyway.
Let's move on to cool things down right now.
Yeah.
We're gonna move to the tune Soul Regret.
All right. So moving on to Soul Regret.
Which I believe the Soul Regret is when you're in the village area with Rux and just kind of chilling. So it's the village music.
Oh, the village music.
I'm
okay,
pretty sure. Oh.
That's a strong chord right there.
How can one chord create such emotion?
A lot of reverb.
With choir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe this is not what I'm thinking of.
I don't think so.
But it's definitely more relaxed.
I thought the other one had like a. I thought it had like a beat going beneath it in the village.
I love the soundtrack because it feels like what I did when I was like a young guitarist starting to learn to compose. And yeah, no, this is not the village music. I'm wrong. And
all right, is this for real? This guitar this time?
It's like a sitar sample of sorts.
Yeah.
He's creating.
I mean, compared to when I thought it was a banjo before.
But the sounds that he's getting with the guitar, it's almost like when I was starting to compose, I wrote an entire 10-minute long piece just using nothing but guitar effects and was just obsessed.
I don't know how you do that shit. I can't do it, man. I've tried making songs like that, and when I compose, I'm sure I've said it before, but I do basically 4 measures, and if I use a single idea in 4 measures, I have to scrap it and change it and do something new because it's too long. I don't want to bore people, so I gotta. Especially when I started out writing like I had ADHD.
Yeah.
Just constantly changing it because I didn't want to make it too long. But then I'll listen to fucking Deadmau5 or Pink Floyd and be like, I love this. This is great. Not totally unaware that the way they wrote music is hey, here's an idea. Here's 5 minutes of that idea, and we'll mix it up a little bit later.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, because a lot of that.
But there is a self-conscious part of me as a composer where I feel like I'm not worthy enough to do that yet. I have to earn that shit.
It's weird. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because it's kind of like one of those anybody can compose that,
Yeah.
Perceptions, not reality, but. There's a fear of that perception
as a composer.
And there's other
shit where I'm over here writing some music for one of the games that I'm working on, and I play the chord progression. What was it? What did I do? F sharp major, then D sharp 7, or something like that. Which no. Sorry, wait. Just kidding. I went so A sharp 7, which then went to D sharp minor. So I basically did the 1 chord, and then I did the 5 of the 6 chord, and then I went to the 6 chord.
Okay.
Well, the 5 of the 6 chord, going from 1 to 5 of 6, that is the same progression as going G major to B major, which is the first 2 chords in the song "Creep" by Radiohead. And so I'm just over here writing just happy, cheerful winter music. And my friend, Ethan, who I've mentioned a couple times, was like, "You're so fucking special." And he just said that to me. I was like, "Shut up." And it's this is why I don't write tonal harmonies, because I can't do anything without saying, that sounds like something, that sounds like that, so that sounds like that. And then, but he said something nice to me after that. He said, "Oh, so you're you're sad that you took the chord progression from one of the best songs ever and still made it sound original. That's the key. That's the key.
Yeah.
Making these things sound organic, but I know the struggle.
Well, the old adage is that there's nothing new under the sun anymore.
Yeah.
That everything is a variation of something,
course.
and pretty much anybody can be sued for copyright infringement in some respect.
If you dig deep enough, if you're perfectly strict constructionist.
I'm pretty well. Like some of my favorite songs I composed, I eventually thought I was like, it's a fucking Coheed song. God damn it, stuff like that.
I accidentally wrote.
That's a Nobuo Uematsu song. That's the the mission or the bombing mission from Final Fantasy VII.
I accidentally wrote the Final Fantasy VII world map theme once.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing, and I was like, yeah, it is amazing, and it's not mine.
The first game that I wrote for Command and Conquer, or not Command, Conquest and Command, or what was it? What was it called? CNC. I think you worked on it a little bit too.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, but it was with David.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I showed you the one that was the Dragon Chase one. And I played it, and I wrote it, and I was like, this is pretty cool if I could just get it sounding good. And then I thought about it. It's like, fuck, that is the bombing mission from Final Fantasy VII. God damn it.
Oh, man. Well, this is why it's nice to get all these different sounds in soundtracks like this, because it makes me think differently.
Yeah.
Because there was the time there where all I listened to was Nobuo Uematsu, so I need to branch out more, and that's what I do.
And that's what I'm hoping to get from this too, because I've constantly been in this rut of I want to be a composer, but I want to write classical music. And as a game composer, you can't do that. You need to be open to writing anything, and that's my big problem. I have a hard time, and that's what I found during CNC. Is that I feel like as a composer, I want to write something that I believe in as a game, and I can't say that I didn't believe it because I never got a playable build.
Right.
I never got to play the game, so I didn't know what I was writing for, and which unfortunately I wasn't able to finish it because of school, and I had to really buckle down so that I could pass my class and get my degree, which was kind of a little bit more important at the time. But it was a good learning experience doing that game. Yeah.
For sure.
Because again, it made me try to write something that I didn't really know anything about. I got the idea that, it's a little mini game where you're being chased by a dragon and you're trying to race your friend and beat him. I'm like, okay, so a dragon's chasing after me. It's got to be hectic. It's got to be urgent. And then there's another mini game that was about catching books in a library, so I was like, okay, so let's do something a little bit more sophisticated. So I did a two-part,
Fugue.
No, it was
Invention.
Invention, yeah, two-part invention, like box inventions. So I was just trying to figure out what fit where and how to do that, and that was closer to my line of music, and it still was difficult for me to actually to get the inspiration. So I know that I need to actually branch out and start looking into synth music, start looking into recording live music for my recordings, start looking into different types of music that I've never tried before, because it's only going to better me as a composer and make me more desirable to making game music eventually.
Well, I think if anyone was watching this, if anyone does, chances are they're interested in video game music and maybe also want to write it themselves. I know. I was on the East Coast. I got my undergrad degree in guitar performance and classical composition. Then I was like, well, shit, what do I do next? Because this is what I want to fucking do. And, what I discovered was there is nowhere, absolutely nowhere you can go for video game music composition.
No. I was pretty surprised to even find a little bit here at UCR.
Yeah, and it's all because of Tim.
Yeah,
Tim Labor.
Which is probably sad because he's not at the music program anymore, is he?
He is not.
That makes me a sad panda.
I mean, he still works with us, and I'm still gonna be talking to him a whole bunch.
Yeah, but he's not gonna have the music and media composition class like we did.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly.
We had this class that was all about composing, and it was a composition class, and I had it 2 years with two different teachers. One was a man named Dr. Chagas, who owns the studio that we're recording at. And then we had Dr. Tim Labor, who is almost just polar opposite from Chagas' style. Chagas, from what I had his class, he was more about experimental compositions using synth, using electronic music, trying to find different sounds, whereas Dr. Tim Labor was more, he's kind of more on the show tune side. He loves musicals. He played a lot of musical stuff, and he was also about media and composition. So one of the ones we had to do was create a story for a show with a high concept. And we had to write out the concept of the show. And we had to come up with the high concept and give a plot. And then we had to write the intro theme, the opening theme for it. And then there was another one where you had to write a song for like VR or something like that.
Oh, like what I did?
Yeah.
Oh, we actually had to make a VR, virtual reality environment.
Yeah,
and then
like implement sounds and music and stuff like it. Yeah. I wasn't able to do that. I just did the other project, which I don't even remember what it was. But yeah, he had this really cool idea, and it's kind of sad that the future students aren't going to be able to get that, probably.
I'll make sure that still happens. I'm still there, and I still have power of sorts. So, but yeah, no, it sucks because I was, this is the music I've been listening to for ages before I even moved to the West Coast, and I just really... Like we're still in a world now where video games and video game music especially, it's 30th anniversary-ish. It's been around, but like...
In popular gaming, yeah.
And
games have been around for longer,
now,
but they were a lot more simplified.
Because of this, we have programs, places like USC and UCLA who have changed their name to just not be film or TV and to be visual media. But it's fucking different. It's completely fucking different.
Yeah.
Like for them, they're composing for the mood. Here, like my job 2 weeks ago was to write music for a farm. I write music for, it was farm.
Said something snowy.
Farm, wintry, yes, under the sea, all those things. That's what you get. You don't get, we need to make you cry. We need to make everyone cry. No, that's not what it's about. Yeah. And no one's there teaching us.
You do get that in certain, if they're like, you have a cutscene where, X person dies, we need something for that. But yeah, it is different because you have themes. And you have the snowy fields, you have the ice cavern, you have the fire mountain, you have... you have the grass plains, or everything has their own type of feel, and a lot of that has to do with exoticism. Yeah. And in composing those, use a lot of bells and chimes for Ice Cavern. You use a lot of sitar and Eastern percussion for the fire dungeons or whatever. Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do that, but
the education that we do as video game composers right now, it's our own education.
Yeah,
which is why we're doing this, because every little thing we go to, it's completely different. It's not that Hans Zimmer type music.
Yeah, boom,
and that for 50 more times. So, with that being said,
all right, yeah. So we're gonna move over to Transistor now, and we're gonna start with the we're gonna focus on the hummed version. Because this is more akin to what you hear in the game. Randomly Red, the main character, will just start humming along with the music, which is really cool because it takes this music and turns it into something a little bit more diegetic, and which is cool because the main character is a jazz artist. She is a singer. She is a popular singer in this world, and someone comes and steals her voice, and as I said earlier, kills her boyfriend. And he gets trapped in the sword.
She's redhead, and someone took her voice. It's the Little Mermaid. I'm sorry. I realized that earlier, and it just made me... But no, totally different. That would be hilarious.
Yeah. So the version we're going to have is it's going to be the song, and you can find different versions of this. You can find it the instrumental, or you can find it with the actual vocal version, or you can find it the hummed. And we're going to focus on the humming because the humming is something more like you would hear in the game. But it's also just gorgeous. Her voice is incredible, and it flows with the music in such an impeccable way. So let's go ahead and take a listen to Old Friends.
So already... melodically, there's a huge difference between Bastion and Transistor. Mm-hmm. So with Bastion, it was all incredibly pentatonic, scale-based. And the thing about the pentatonic scale is that's just the people have found, like, you know how kids are always going like na 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 na.
Yeah.
Another Spyro thing, of course, as well. But, and that the pentatonic scale kind of just naturally fits into our vocal cords, and that's why that happens a lot. So that's why that makes sense, because that game is more organic, and it's like some average individual singing her song that's more of a folksy song. But here, these notes that she's humming fit more into a fuller scale, you know, as opposed to just the 5 notes in the scale. I hear all 7. And she's not just, you know, and some other notes outside of the scale, I'm pretty sure, as well. And it's more voluptuous in terms of the melodic contour. Not that, you know, it's not a bad thing. It just shows, again, this defining difference between her as a jazz singer, who clearly has to sing these crazy jazz tunes sometimes, like bebop like crazy, and that shows a nice difference between.
And she's
the
good
two
because
sound
she's
types.
like a popular person in this world. She's got signs all over the marquee, her face plastered up all around town on this like big wall and stuff. So it's not like she's just some random person. She is a revered musician in this game.
I love when you're like a famous person in a video game.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I just love that.
But yeah, and the instrumentation is quite different than Bastion's. If you hear like the bass in this is a lot more heavy synth crunch to it. Yeah, it's just super cool there. The drums are definitely a lot more of a loop produced, you know, kind of hip hop sound to it, not so much of a live loop that kind of Bastion sound like.
Yeah.
The guitar, it's not that acoustic guitar. It is a subtle electric guitar that's kind of not really at the forefront. You hear the drums and the bass and the vocals a lot more than the guitar. Although right here you pick up and it kind of sounds more like a traditional drum set.
Cymbal add.
Yeah. Kind of bringing back the jazz feel of the you know, the concept of the whole
Adds
game.
all the frequencies that we're missing. And there's more pads in this as well.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is incredibly necessary in a sort of sci-fi-esque game.
Exactly.
You need
Yeah.
those pads, because I know
Because it has this really cool juxtaposition of the kind of old school jazz feel and the crazy sci-fi feel that you get in the game. Because if you look at the sword, that is not natural.
That's like a cloud sword right there.
Yeah, it's.
Where
I
he
mean,
picks it up
it's
and he can just
huge.
drop
I mean,
his hands.
if you've seen her play, she just drags it and sparks are coming up constantly behind you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really cool. But it's got this like red eye in the center of it that actually, I believe, blinks because it's like him. And it's got like almost this. It's almost got this. These markings coming down that remind me of what you'd see on like a motherboard.
Right.
So
Yeah.
It definitely has this
it
more
looks
of
like
a sci-fi. A lot more. The game is a lot of blues and greens and reds and a lot of really sharp colors that juxtaposed with her, you know, beautiful red hair and her gold dress. Or is that black and blue?
Let's not start that fucking debate again. I will say, Supergiant Games, if you haven't done this already, total missed opportunity. Turn that sword into a USB drive.
Oh my god!
Fuck yeah!
Yes, that would be so cool.
Just pull the sword out. I feel like
Yeah.
Excalibur every time you put that thing in. I'd love
Oh
that.
yeah, that'd be really cool.
But one of the things I've noticed about all the tracks in Bastion versus Transistor is that thank you. It was gonna get there. Is how you have in like the first one we showed in Bastion was a proper story, which is that tempo, and literally like Transistor is almost like literally half that, or it's like feeling that halftime feel.
Yeah.
And everything's just so relaxed, it seems.
Yeah,
Compared to Bastion's
it's a
fast-paced music.
it's a very different kind of feel to the overall game because even when you're playing the game, it's not a very fast-paced game. It's kind of a more slow and subtle approach to everything. You know, she's kind of got a slower run cycle than the stranger does. I guess
Sure.
that's the name in the game. No,
The
the
boy.
kid. The kid, yeah.
Oh, the kid, yeah.
Yeah. And all the environments, even the speaking and the narration, his voice is always a lot more chill and, hey, Red. Just whispery and quiet and subtle. And whereas, you know, Rux. Rav's from Coheed. Jesus. Rux is, yeah, the kid. He went
it's just the tone is different. So the music really reflects that, and it's some really cool stuff.
So let's move on to Stained Glass?
Yeah, Stained Glass, which is...
Whenever I heard this one, I always felt like it had a neo-noir feel to it, like as if there was some sort of detective work that's going on. I don't know. Is that true at all?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
it's kind of... This game is more like...
It's
Hyperlight Drifter meets Bastion, in that the story is more elusive.
Okay.
It's not so in your face, and there's no like cutscenes. It's just the sword talking to you and telling you what's up and giving you a little bit of exposition here and then, but you just kind of get everything through the environment and kind of just feeling it rather than actually being told the story about what's going on.
One of the things we didn't talk about yet with this music is actually how fascinating it is, in that it is a combination of diegetic and non-diegetic.
I brought it up a little bit, but yeah.
Okay. So that humming is definitely what she is humming to herself.
Right.
And it's almost like the background music is what she's hearing in her head and she's singing along to. At least that's what I'm imagining.
Yeah. Well, what I also love about this is the fact that she's humming also shows that she loves what she does.
Yeah.
Is that even when her voice is taken from her,
she can't stop singing.
She can't stop singing, and that even if she can't sing it, she'll hum it, and it just makes me love her as a character even more, considering that she is the traditional silent protagonist that everyone just apparently loves except for me. I've always hated the silent protagonist.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too. When they gave the voice to Booker DeWitt, I was so happy.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, I don't need to be this character. I don't need, like, even in Fallout.
Yeah.
I don't need to be that character.
Well, Fallout 4, he has a voice actor.
Yeah, but then they also kind of ruined that a little bit, though, by just giving you like 4 little options rather than the crazy dialogue options that you get in New Vegas and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I don't mind what happens in Fallout as far as the silent protagonist, because you're not silent. You just don't hear the voice.
Oh my god.
You don't hear the voice, but you are talking and you are being a character in that game. So that one's a little bit different. But I'm talking like Golden Sun or Persona, where your options are smile or frown. Your character personality is just fantastic. But that's why I like Persona 5 so much, because even though he is a silent protagonist, he has a couple of lines in the game.
Sure.
And he has a personality even if he doesn't speak. When you're playing him, he is a Joker's just badass when he's in the other reality.
Exactly.
He's got his own style, his own personality, and everything. So the silent protagonist's lack of a voice there kind of works because he has personality everywhere else.
Right.
But the ones who are just blank slates, just like, oh, I'm supposed to be you. You're supposed to reject yourself on me. I've always hated that. I mean, I love Chrono's design in Chrono Trigger, but he's like one of the worst characters because he's a non-character.
I was just about to bring up a song that reminds me of the next one, but I just realized our video would get taken down if I played that. So never mind. I will mention the name, but let's play it first.
All right, what we got? Oh yeah, the spine.
This guitar tone is a Hendrix guitar tone.
Yeah. We'll get taken down.
Play that chord from the beginning again.
All right.
Actually, don't do that, because that'll fuck you up when you edit this, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. So the beginning chord, which if you can go back if you want to hear it, is like almost the beginning of Hey Joe.
Oh yeah, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's, but it's obviously a totally different piece
of music. It's a little slower, but yeah.
Yeah, and I just love how he uses that. His playing is all about the soul in both soundtracks. There's nothing about it that's like, all right, let's play Flight of the Bumblebee now, or let's break down this dude. No.
Yeah, I like this. This is cool.
And
this is one of the more upper songs.
Yeah.
It is kind of optimistic, but it also has a little dissonance in it.
Yeah.
That I like.
Yeah, where you take the major chord and then make it minor.
Yeah.
Again, just like Creep. Nothing wrong with that. we take what we like and we do it well in a new way. Nice. What an interesting musician.
Yeah.
And one of the things that always also blows me away is I wonder what his background is, because I've not actually looked that up much. And production-wise, the mix of this music is impeccable, and he did all of it because that's what he had to do. So he made everything sound like pitch perfect, and the guitar tones are impeccable. And I don't know how he managed to do all that, because
you know, it impresses me too, because I mean, like, this is, for all intents and purposes, I mean, like, they're big now because of these games, but big Supergiant Games isn't Supergiant. You know, they're a small indie studio, and I always respect when these indie studios are able to come out with impeccable soundtracks that even challenge the best of the AAA world. You know, like, you get games like Hotline Miami. Like, I will just always love the music to Hotline Miami. And you get games like Journey, which is kind of like in a little weird middle space between indie and AAA. But those games have just incredible soundtracks, and Hyper Light Drifter, Fez. There's just so many great examples of indie games with incredible soundtracks, even though their games themselves might not be the most ambitious or spectacular of game design.
that mandolin though.
Yeah.
That came out of nowhere.
They go all out with their music and everything else about them, that it really stands out. So I love all that shit.
Yeah.
The next song we're gonna look at, I have it written as Forest, but I don't think it is. I think it is.
Which time is it?
Vanishing Point.
Forest was close.
Yeah.
How did you write down Forest?
I don't know.
I must have said.
I think I meant to hit Forecast.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, you did. Yeah, you did mean to write that down.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So
this
anyway,
one was...
Vanishing Point's the one I wanted to talk about anyway.
Again, it's still really slow. Oh,
Yeah.
Man.
Now, when you're playing the game, man, this music is just the coolest fucking stuff you hear. You know, it just fits the game's aesthetic so impeccably when you're playing it. I just love it. And you got that the synth arpeggio going on beneath that you hear a lot in this game, and reminds me of something that you would hear in either Tron or Blade Runner.
Oh, that's interesting. You know what I just realized? That arpeggio at the bottom created a polyrhythm against the triplets that were going on above it. This is really hard to feel. He keeps changing the rhythmic feel of this tune, and he had a 2 against 3 there for a second, which isn't the craziest polyrhythm there in a while. But when he got it going faster, it changed its tone. Here.
Oh yeah.
Or it's like the parts above it are doing swing while the keyboard underneath is still persistently doing this.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
One of the benefits of having like loops and synths.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
you don't
easy
have to worry
enough
about accidentally like.
Well, even still, when you do that, that can sound really jarring at times. But that piano in the background is so, or the keyboard synth sound is so subtle that it doesn't feel like it's wrong.
I'm wondering. I don't know the story about this, but I'm kind of curious if the person who was brought on to do the vocals for this. I wonder if she was given free reign to actually hum over. Ashley Barrett.
Yeah, she's the one that did the song in Bastion 2. Build That Wall.
Yeah, I wonder if she was given basically free reign to improvise the vocals over it. I know there are some songs in here that are actual like songs that have lyrics in them. But most of these don't in the other versions. They're all instrumental except for a couple of them that have actual lyrics. So most of these are hummed. There's only a few on this version of the soundtrack that aren't hummed over. So I'm wondering if she was given like autonomy to improvise her vocals track over it, which would be kind of cool considering also the person who the character is.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It'd be interesting to see. All right, and I think we're gonna finish off with the song "Water Wall." So let's go ahead and
I
give
feel
that
like
one.
your mic is picking. No, it's picking me up. Okay, just kidding. Well, we get real close to those.
Ooh, that's cool.
Oh, so this is, I love this one because this is almost like EDM.
Yeah, it's definitely got a little bit more of a like a house vibe to it.
That's a very common sound now, where you've got this side chained thing where you hear and so it's compressing the sound and bringing it back up with its threshold. And of course, this wouldn't be complete without an accordion sound.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
It's not an accordion, but it's a synth
It's
sound.
definitely
It's a
a
synth sound that sounds very reedy. You've got a reed in there of sorts.
I mean, it's not a real accordion, but I think it is supposed to be an accordion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can hear the synth of it, but he's got this something in it put together perfectly with this additive synth, making it sound like
But
it's...
the way it plays is very much like in and out.
Is this supposed to be like take place in a city in like an actual place here in the world?
Yeah.
Where?
Well, no, sorry. I don't think they specifically say anything about the setting.
Okay.
Like I said, I haven't beaten it, so I don't know. I want to. It's coming out soon for the Switch, September 1st. I'm going to be right there on day one.
Everything's coming out for the Switch.
I know, I love it. I love it so much.
That's pretty wild to me.
Yeah.
Like, this game came out, I think, 6 years ago? And it's
2014, I want to say.
okay, so
Yeah.
still 4 years
It was
later.
either 13 or 14. It came out early in the PlayStation 4 cycle.
And then Nintendo's like, we fucked up. Our fans haven't been able to get our stuff recently, or they've had to buy a PlayStation. So let's just actually do something so that we can get all the games.
Yeah.
So they don't have to move to another console.
Yeah, I was super hyped when they brought Bastion to the Vita, and now I'm super hyped that we're getting both Bastion and Transistor to the Switch. Yeah, Switch is a great place to be playing all these games. Hyper Light Drifter, Transistor. Plus, you get a great slew of JRPGs. I have like freaking 4 of them.
Yeah.
Half of my library is JRPGs, including the couple demos that I have.
I need Dragon Quest 11.
Yeah.
God, the game looks gorgeous. Holy shit. And the new Spider-Man game, but it's like this is gonna be a dangerous season. The fall season's gonna be dangerous for my wallet.
Yeah.
It really is. Just this week alone, Dragon Quest and Spider-Man, I'm done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, I decided to forego getting any of the newer games. Try to minimize the
$60.
Yeah, minimize the impact on my wallet. So I just picked up Final Fantasy Type 0 for like $10.
Oh, okay, I got that for free at one point.
Yeah.
On the PlayStation Store.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I have beaten it already, but I have all the other Final Fantasies on PS4, so I kind of need a. So I need a.
Destiny 2 is free right now.
I don't have a PS Plus membership.
Oh man.
I've been like putting it off, and
God of War 3 is free.
I already own it.
I figured. That might be my way of jumping into the series.
Yeah, no, God of War 3 is a good one. It's a little different, but it's more akin to like the first two. You know, it's definitely different than this one, the new one.
So this is Darren Korb.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been. He's probably the composer I'm most impressed with in this recent generation of games, except for maybe Danny Bernowski. But they're two completely different people.
Yeah.
He's Darren Korb's still got that guitar going on, whereas Danny Bernowski is all about synths. Let's go. I'm designing all of this with my synth design skills. And
that's funny. I mean, like, I think that says a lot about our differences as composers and musicians and listeners as well, because I'd say like my favorite has been Austin Wintory, who did the Journey soundtrack and also the soundtrack to Assassin's Creed Syndicate.
Yep.
And I found his music is just completely different.
he is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, his music is more.
Deny that.
It's hard to explain. We'll cover it eventually. But yeah,
But not next week.
no,
Because next week we're talking about Final Fantasy VIII. It's happening.
yeah, we're finally not gonna pussyfoot around it. We're actually gonna jump into it.
Are you cool with 8?
Oh, dude, 8's my favorite soundtrack from the series. So
Okay.
yeah,
Sweet.
absolutely love that. Which is weird because I have 2 soundtracks actually that I own, and that's 10 and 12. So
I don't blame you. It's so expensive to get those 7, 8, and 9 soundtracks.
yeah,
Because they were only released in Japan, and I think I had to pay like $200 if I wanted to get like the 4-disc one. It's not fun.
I think you could find it for cheaper now. I'm
I would
hoping
assume.
that.
I just put that shit on Sound or Spotify, man.
I remember actually getting the soundtrack for 12 when I went and saw Distant Worlds back at E3 2014, I want to say. And they had all the soundtracks there, and I was like, well, I only have $100, so I guess I'm going to get the Final Fantasy. And they were pretty cheap. I think they were going for like $30 or something.
The CDs?
Yeah.
That ain't cheap. But no, it's for getting it at a concert. No, I get that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
did.
I mean,
Because
getting
I did
the-
the same thing. That's where I got mine too.
Okay. Yeah, I could, at the
Baltimore.
time I could only get the final. I had to choose, and I went with Final Fantasy 12 because I love Hitoshi Sakimoto's stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, Final Fantasy 8 has so much of my favorite Final Fantasy music. It was still at that time where Nobuo Uematsu had a lot of ideas. In 9, he started kind of taking a more nostalgic approach, so kind of like rehashing older ideas.
Well, that's the purpose of that entire game.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is why it worked.
Yeah.
But I feel, I don't know. Honestly, 9 was not one of my favorites at all. In any regard, it's the most recent one that I beat,
bring
and I can't remember much
tears
of it.
To me right
I
now.
know.
It's
the
the
one
first Final
I
Fantasy
beat
I
it
ever
like
played.
a couple years ago, and I swear I don't remember much about that game.
That's fair.
It's
That is my
it just-
childhood.
Yeah, I remember everything about the first disc up until when that black mage blows all of the Eevee's lookalikes off of the ship.
That shit was awful.
Yeah, it was
That was
horrifying.
brutal.
But the reason I remember that is because my first copy scratched out at that scene.
Oh my god, my copy literally
so I never was
scratched
able to get past that until I bought it on the PlayStation Network.
my version of Final Fantasy IX cut out when right after beating the final boss, and you're in like the 40-minute long cutscene at the end of the game, and I'm like 10 minutes into the cutscene, and there's this scene where Zidane's looking at the tree.
Zidane.
Is it?
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck?
I know. It's just like it's Titus.
They don't say it. They don't say it.
Yeah, just like it's Titus and not Titus.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's Titus. I don't
Yeah.
care what you say.
And well, I don't want to do spoilers about that, but it just stopped there with him looking at the Aoife tree, and I was like, and it just stopped. And that was the first time I ever beat the game after owning it for maybe 10 years. And I was like, no! The screams were unreal.
Well, you know
And
what?
then
You know what, dude? Fuck it, YouTube.
What was well, I almost did that, but what was amazing was while I was having my hissy fit when I was way too old, just dealing with this old fucking technology,
Last week.
I was like, yeah, not last week. Not too long ago, actually. I relaxed, and then I sat back down, and then it just started again. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
So yeah, I had to wait for like 30 minutes for it to turn back on. But yeah, Final Fantasy VIII, what I think is really nice about that one is I think in terms of all of the Final Fantasy games that Nobuo Uematsu worked on, it's the most sci-fi.
yeah. Yeah,
And you
that's
can
for sure.
really hear it. And I think that's what I love about that soundtrack for sure.
Yeah.
And like even just the normal battle theme, it's in 5.
5/4? Like, oh, your time signature. Yeah. Yeah, the battle theme, I actually wrote a song that's similar to that song, too. I remember that. I was writing a battle theme. I was like, no, fuck, that's the Final Fantasy VIII battle theme. But, yeah, Final Fantasy VIII, it's a special game for many reasons. For Square Enix, it was the first departure to kind of more lifelike and serious feel to it.
Yeah.
That's where they finally dropped the chibi look and went for proportionate characters. And they kind of took that approach to the rest of the game as well. They took a more mature look to the story. They gave they focused more on the character personalities and character interactions, and they actually tried diving into unique concepts for the battle system that may or may not have panned out depending on your opinion. The withdraw system,
the drawing system.
Give yourself 255 flares and just become like a
God.
yeah.
I mean, that's how I played the game, man. I beat the game at level 7.
Let's save it.
All right, yeah, we need to save
We
it.
need to
But
save it.
the music is incredible. That's why we're going
Yeah.
to talk about it next week.
So that's it for today's gaming fanfare.
Yeah.
I am Christian.
I'm Tyler.
Peace.
See you guys later.